leading a group or facilitating a group with somebody else can be tough. So in this video, I'm going to unpack some of the best practices that I've learned on how to co-facilitate or co-lead a group. Not from things that I read about in a book and thought would be interesting to regurgitate to you, but things that I've learned from co-leading, co-facilitating over 500 dialogues for an organization I used to work for called World in Conversation. Since then, I've co-led lots of stuff. I've got a co-founder at We and Me. Pre-COVID, we met up all around the world and country to co-lead, co-speak, co-present. Done lots of things together with other people. And I've floundered and flubbered around and failed in lots of ways. And in this video, my intention is to save you some of those flounderings and flubberings so that you can, as quickly as possible, create some synergy with whoever you're co-leading, partnering up with. Let's get into it. Right as we start, I want to acknowledge I don't know everything, and there's undoubtedly, this could be a topic that you and I could have a 3-hour sit down on, and that would probably be even more useful because it would be very specific to your context. So I'm going to share things that are generally very, very useful that you can ruthlessly steal and reinterpret into your own context. Here's number 1 out of 3 things that I want to unpack and share with you. Transparent check-ins. I have received more comments, compliments on this practice than anything else I've ever done in a co-leading or co-facilitating role. And that is typically, when we think about co-leading, we think about doing all the work behind the scenes in a briefing meeting so that everything's perfect and we just do this magical dance with everybody and we're always in tune and I finish each sentence that you're gonna say. It doesn't happen, right? Unless you've been married to somebody for 25, even then, it just doesn't happen, right? That doesn't roll that smoothly. And if you do succeed in creating that, it probably comes across as fake and inauthentic because it's not reasonable for basically anyone to read somebody else's mind. And so transparent check-ins means in the middle of a group, in the middle of a dialogue, in the middle of a workshop or in the middle of a keynote to 2,000 people, I would turn to Will, or I'd turn to my co-facilitator, co-presenter, and we would check in to say, hey, I just want to gauge, I'm thinking that we're going to go down this path because that's where we're at in the group. Do you have anything you want to share, say, or another sense or direction? And doing that right in front of the group is almost like breaks the fourth wall for a group. It's like, hey, come into you're just one of us, come into our planning meeting right now. It creates this fishbowl dynamic. If you're not familiar with that, it's like, where a board of an organization would be sitting in a circle, meeting, and everybody else would be around them, around the outside, observing that meeting, watching that meeting. Really transparent, right? Really, really transparent. It's the exact dead opposite of a closed door meeting. And so you don't need to wait until your participants or your group is talking to each other or doing something else or on lunch break to go over and whisper to your co-facilitator about that thing. Just check in with them transparently, right out in the open. Really useful. It'll actually build a whole bunch of trust with your group. Second idea, which you may be familiar with, it comes from the world of improv, and it's these 2 words, yes and. And yes and is much bigger than the 2 words. It is the philosophy that no matter what happens, what somebody else says, you want to build on that. The alternative would be no but, right? So the dialogues that I mentioned earlier, facilitating with World in Conversation, many of them were dialogues focused around race relations and skipping headlines and actually talking to each other and understanding each other's perspective a little bit better. So almost always I'd be co-facilitating with a not white binary male. Did I just say that right? White binary male?
POV,
yeah. What am I? What's my identity? Let me try to. So almost always, I would be, as a white cisgender male, I'd be facilitating with a person of color or somebody identifies different than me. And that's one of the major benefits of co-leading or co-facilitation is you get 2 perspectives, which ends up being more inclusive for all because there are things that I will never understand about being Black that when my buddy who is there facilitating with me, he's able to ask her or she's able to ask questions from a perspective that I don't have. And so that is true for things far beyond race as well. And so co-leading, co-presenting creates a really great group experience. And you've got to be able to find the cadence of building on what each other are sharing, right? I might not agree with everything that my co-leader or co-facilitator does or says, but I want to help build them up. That's for sure. Like my intention, I want the best for them. I don't want to make them look bad. And the yes and philosophy in improv is about making the other person look good by just accepting what they've said and building on top of it, rather than saying, no, I don't like that. That question's too offensive. Let's not ask that one, right? It totally undercuts their power, and you end up stealing all the power, as opposed to, ooh, that's a really challenging question. Let's let that sit for a little while, and then be able to, at the after some people answer, say, and I'm curious on the flip side of that question, to build off of that and expand that perspective. What about blank? I used to be really bad at this. I'm sure there are still plenty of moments where I am really bad at this, but my wife actually pointed out to me, I was on stage with Will. I had presenting at TEDx. We were actually doing 5 presentations, making TEDx, bringing that sage on the stage dynamic and making it more interactive as a part of our connected conference offering. And Kate offered me some feedback afterward, after the first couple things we did. She's like, dude, pay attention to your face. And there were things that Will was saying that I was either like confused about or not totally getting, or saying things in a way that I might not have been saying them, which, by the way, was great because he was reaching a part of the audience that I wasn't reaching. But my face was like, looking at him like, are you sure? And so that contradicts that yes and, right? Just in my facial expressions, I want to be uplifting and supporting my co-facilitator. Third idea, not sure if you knew this, but the word silent, S-I-L-E-N-T, also contains the same letters as the word listen. And so as a co-facilitator, one of the best things you can do to be a supportive, empowering co-lead is to leave enough silence for your co-facilitator to think and respond. Not enough that you're delegating all the pressure, you're like putting all the crap on them, right? But long enough that they have time to respond and think. And you might front load that silence to really listen by saying, Steven, who's behind the camera right now, we're co-facilitating. Let's say I go to Steven and say, hey Steven, I want to ask one more question here, but then I'd love to kind of check in and get your perspective on something. And then boom, we go have our little side conversation. I ask the question I was going to. Steven knows what's coming. He has enough time to think and prep for what's coming next. And then when Steven jumps on, he's had that time to think and prep. You can give some not so subtle cues that you're about to hand it off or toss over to your co-facilitator. So you can say something like, all right, I'm gonna frame up this first exercise that will get us warmed up, connected a little bit to each other and to the purpose of why we're here. And then right after that, I'm gonna invite Steven to kind of frame up the agenda of where we're gonna go for the rest of our time. The cocktail party effect in psychology, the brain loves names. So you can be all totally distracted by conversations going on or lots of other stimuli or thinking about something else. But as soon as you hear Steven, or Chad, or Mike, or you ever see Mr. Rogers? He'd be like, hello, Joseph, like talking to the camera or talking to that person. There was a bunch of Josephs who were like little kids running around throwing things in chairs, and all of a sudden he said that, and their heads whipped around and looked at the camera right in that moment. The cocktail party effect is, even in a cocktail party, if you hear your name, it's almost like your brain is processing all this data, but picking out the important bits. And one of the most important bits is your name, because it means that something is about to be said to you, so you have to tune in. And so good co-facilitation practice related to that silence and that listening is saying their name, rather than just gesturing to them or pointing to them, saying, Laquan is gonna share this next. Laquan was actually one of my favorite co-facilitators when I worked at World in Conversation. I need to send him a text right after this video. Okay. If you liked this video, one of the most loved videos on facilitation is titled How to Be a Good Facilitator in a Meeting, and you can watch that right here. I'm Chad Littlefield. Have an awesome day.